Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about the new 250 RX 2-stroke from Beta. This is the 2026, a beautiful October day, incredible weather. So we're doing this video outside. We got the 350 sitting behind it, pretty cool. Probably won't talk about that too much. We'll concentrate on the 250 in this video. But this is the first time Beta has ventured into the 250 motocross world. Of course, they've had the 300 since 2024, but it didn't really have a class. But now with the 250, you can line up against some of those 250Fs in AMA racing anyway. So let's jump into this thing. Being the motocross model, Beta has the 19-inch rear rim on this thing. It's the Excel with the Nissan brakes. All new brake line guide, which is pretty cool. Kind of snakes around a little more. Before it was like one clip here, one clip there. Now it's a little more of a guide all the way up through. A year ago, roughly, they went to an all-new rear master cylinder. It's more of a square. The old ones were a round master cylinder. A little more fluid in that one. Coming up here, this is a new 250 motor. So, new cylinder, head, crank, all new gearing. This is a 5-speed. It's the first time Beta's had a 5-speed 250. The 300's obviously been out for a couple years as a 5-speed. What's cool to Beta, because everybody on every one of my videos says, oh, you know, it's electric start only. Well, Beta still allows you to add the kickstart kit. So you can have the best of both worlds, or one or the other, whatever you want to do. It's awesome. And if you notice, Beta went back to the stock foot pegs, which we are so thankful for. In fact, I ordered stock pegs for a gentleman with his race edition yesterday, because for the money, they're a really good peg. On this side of the motor, you've got your gear oil fill and your gear oil drain. So it's incredibly easy, right? So you just put a little piece of plastic under here, guide your oil out, put it back in. Adjustable power valve is right here. Now, being the motocross version, there is no skid plate on this thing. So that's probably the first thing I would do. I understand some guys don't necessarily worry about that too much, but man, I don't want a hole in my case. A skid plate for like 40 or 50 bucks if you just bought like the stock RR would be great. A lot of peace of mind up there. So with all the Beta stuff, everything is routed nice and clean. Got the key and carbon there, routed around in the airbox. KYB suspension front and rear. You got your ignition coil here. I think it's a BR8 ECM plug. I was doing some reading. I'm going to talk about those more in the comparison. I'm also going to talk about the price in the comparison. We're going to talk about kickstart or brand of tires. We got a couple different things we'll talk about here at the end. So simple on the handlebars. We're so excited about this. We just want a woods version of this. So we only have the kill switch and the start button. How clean is all of that? And then you got your dual map ignition as well. So hydraulic clutch as always, coming all the way down. I like how Beta uses these bands. They're adjustable. They're not a one-time use zip tie. We can keep reusing these or slide things around. Right over here to the Nissan brake in the front. Same grips they've been using forever. I have no problem with those. Right into the triple clamps. Again, KYB in the front. Beta is the only motocross 2-stroke 250 to have a clear gas tank, which we like. A little smaller than the rest of them. Again, at the end of the video, we'll talk about that. But look at all the room in there. It's crazy. You can see all the way through. I'm so used to Beta motorcycles having a bigger gas tank, and you don't see as much of the cylinder in there. Coming into the front, you got the pretty blue wheels, especially in the sunlight today. Really popping. Looks great. Really long radiator louvers. They're coming all the way down, scooping as much air as they can to push into those radiators. I don't know if this wire harness has the plug to accept a cooling fan kit. That's still something that I need to learn about. And I was hoping a quick little search here would find it, but I'd have to take the gas tank off and look for the prong that I'm looking for. I know the 450 stators are not designed to run the cooling fan. I do have a couple customers that have done it. So on the 450 4-stroke, they added the cooling fan kit, and knock on wood, the bikes have been good so far, even though they say the stators don't produce enough for it. I am not sure on this. So if you're calling me adding how to add, headlights and taillights and cooling fan kits, I don't have that information. I'm not sure yet on what Beta is going to do to produce for power for extra stuff. That's not the purpose of this model. So what's interesting on the RX models, and this has been true, there's no reserve, so I can't flick the petcock to the reserve side. I've always said we like reserve because of the length of the reserve neck in here, but now you're just going to have the on position. Same basic carb setup though. You get your choke, you get your fine-tune idle adjust, but the true idle adjust is the brass one down there. slave cylinder for the hydraulic clutch right here. Again, 5-speed gearbox. And coming down through, I like how Beta does like the billet, you know, chain adjusters. It just looks good on these. And then this is what comes with it. I'm using a more of a moto stand here under it, but this is what you get. It's a side stand, but it also clicks into the forks for transportation. So you can click it in here and cinch it down, and the tire is going to rest there in the underneath the fender. So you're not going to sack the suspension out on a long car ride. You do get the black shifter and the black brake pedal on the other side. Under the seat, if I can do it with one hand, pop the seat right off. And I love how simple their electronics are, right? We got a battery and we have the starter solenoid. Now keep in mind with Beta being carbureted, we could take that battery out, set it on the concrete over there, and as long as I could bump start this thing, or if you purchase the kickstart kit, you can literally ride this thing away. There's no sweat. Everybody's like, oh man, electric start fails, you're screwed. I'm like, not really. As long as you have the kickstart kit or you can push yourself, you can get out of the woods. This isn't a fuel injected system that requires a perfect 12 volts, so keep that in mind. Also with the Betas, we got this side panel, pops right off. I kind of already started to disconnect it because it's so hard to do when they're brand new. But you got the tabs that go into the push pins there. Look how simple that is. You got your ECU in there, no extra wires, just your air filter. Easy to change. You pull down on the tab, rock the air filter out, rock it back in, and then you just put your side panel right back on. Again, when they're brand new, these tabs are hard to use, and we'll put some grease on there before we sell it to the customer. That way it comes in and out a little bit easier. But that's an overall look at the airbox. I just want to brag about this for a second. Look how clean this is. There's no wiring, no taillight, no spot for mud to come in. We are just waiting for this thing to become an off-road version. So now that we walked around it, was to start this thing up. I did start it quite a bit earlier when I moved it out, so there's not a lot of heat in it. Fire's right up though. This sounds different than most 252 strokes from Beta. This has that deeper lug to it. It's pretty warm still. That's why I didn't touch the pipe in the video. I don't know how hot it still was. Sounds so good, so healthy. Of course, the more you ride it, the more it's going to break in, the better it's going to sound. I would say at about 2 hours of runtime, you start that thing back up again and rev it like that, it's just going to sound so crisp. But the ultimate goal would be to take this bike home along with like that 250X Pro and like a 250 Race Edition. The only problem is when I ride all three of those are no longer new. We don't get any backing from Beta on any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, losing $4,000 out of my pocket for doing a 30-minute video is really tough sometimes. But let's jump into that comparison stuff right now. So I put together a really small list of different things comparing this to the KTM and the Yamaha. I didn't put in the Husqvarna or the Gas because obviously the KTM and the other two are so similar. I don't need to waste my time looking up all those other brands this morning. So Beta, KTM, and Yamaha, we'll talk right off the bat about the price. And of course things always change, retail is always changing. But the Beta comes in at $96.90, KTM is $96.49, and the Yamaha is right at $8,100, $8,099. So Yamaha obviously considerably cheaper than the other two. They always have been. It's always been the Austrian brand versus the Jap stuff. But there's some differences. So, and to be clear, none of these bikes are wrong. I'm not here to bash the Yamaha or the KTM. That's not what we're going to do. We're just straight reading off of the spec sheets on their websites. So the cool thing with the Beta here is the seat height is the best. It's 37.2. KTM is 37.7 and the Yamaha is 38.4. So I did not expect the Yamaha to be the highest by a little over an inch, which to me is crazy. People come in here and say the bikes sit high. I guess I don't have the Yamaha sitting next to it. I could push somebody over there and be like, here, go sit on that one. So that's interesting to me. It's exciting because we're always battling seat height for customers. When we go to the gas tank stuff, the Beta does hold the least amount of fuel. So we are at 1.5 versus 1.9 and 1.8 respectively. So, but the cool thing is the Beta is the clear gas tank, and that's the other point on this, was that the Yamaha and the KTM are both black gas tanks. And I've always enjoyed the clear gas tank from Beta. Literally every bike over there is a clear gas tank. Because you can rock it and you can see where you're at. So on a motocross track, I think Beta's fine at 1.5. I did just do a video like 3 days ago though, taking that gas tank off and putting an IMS on there. So if you want a bigger tank, if you want the RR tank like that X Pro, you can take that tank, which is a little over 2. You can take the IMS, which is a little over 3. So you got options here. So we're not stuck with the 1.5. Carb versus EFI, both Beta and the Yamaha are on key and carbs, and then the KTM is the only one fuel injected. So if you want that, if you live at elevation, if that's important to you, go buy the KTM because it's got the key and EFI in it. Now, flip side of that is they need a perfect battery to run. The Yamaha doesn't even have a battery, and the Beta you can take the battery out of. So fuel injection has both positives and negatives. The starting, and I guess we just covered that. Yamaha doesn't even have a battery, so it's obviously a kickstart only. Beta has both options. And then the big talking point here is KTM is electric start only. There's not even like a knuckle in the case here, right? So we can't add a kickstart kit to a KTM. This is Beta's only brand that you could have both. It's kind of funny. Suspension, we have the KYB in both the Beta and the Yamaha, and the KTM, according to the website, is still doing the AER air fork. So my son races gases. I'm sure if you watch our channel, you see that. He has 3 Super Minis, all gas. And we've converted every single one of those from air to spring fork. Personal decisions. I'm not bashing what they come with, but it does cost me, I don't know what factory connection gets me for. I feel like it's like $1,200 or something every time I do that. So that could be an additional cost to the KTM if you want to go away from the air fork. If you like the air fork, it's adjustable, it's easy, you don't got to buy springs, nothing wrong with it. The weight is super close on all of these. The Beta's at 220, KTM's at 219, and both of those bikes on the website said with no fuel. They're wet weight with no fuel, meaning gearbox oil and coolant, but no gas in the bikes. Where Yamaha is a little different. They gave their weight with fuel, so they were at 227 with fuel. Obviously, they don't have the battery in there, but they do have the kickstart lever, so I don't know if the weight's really that much different. It's 7 pounds different, maybe a little lighter on the Yamaha once you take the gas out of the gas tank. Tires. Beta comes with the Maxxis tires, so you can see them down here. I have nothing against these tires. I think they're really good tires, both front and rear. They hook up good. But of course, there's nothing wrong with a Dunlop either. So the KTM and Yamaha both have Dunlops on them. I've always thought stock tires, you burn them off anyway. You go home, you do your initial break-in. The tires, before your first race, you're going to put new tires on anyway. So it is what it is. Next thing is going to be air filter accessibility, and this is more of a maintenance thing, as the Beta and the KTM have the side panels. I've enjoyed that with Braxton's gases. I've enjoyed that with every Beta since 2012. You pop the side panel off. Yamaha, though, you do have probably one 8mm bolt to pop that seat off, so it's not a big deal, but it's not toolless like these brands are. So that's one difference. The KTM and the Beta have the dual map ignition, so you can see right in the middle of the handlebar here, we got the switch from wet to dry. I believe KTM has something similar, where Yamaha has nothing. It's just a straight, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I couldn't find anything on their website that said anything about a dual ignition. So a little more options, a little more wet and dry, and I do have customers now that say on the whole shot, they'll flick it to dry, and then when they get in the wet sections, then the races, they will put it into the wet map. So it's cool. It's an option. Let's say you're doing a moto and halfway through the moto track it's gummy at the bottom. You can put it in the rain mode. Maybe get a little more traction in the bottom half of the track. Skid plate, none of them come with skid plates. We did talk about that. I would buy one. I would 100% put a skid plate on my bike. The local motocross tracks here, super rocky. One case of a jump or one rock off of a tire, you got a hole in your case. That's expensive. So none of them have skid plates, but I would certainly add it. Last thing we'll talk about here is just a spark plug. The Beta spark plug is by far the most expensive. It's $24. It's a BR8 ECM. KTM and Yamaha are both like in the $6 to $5 price range. So if you're buying like 2 or 3 spare plugs, you're going to get hit a little heavier on the Beta stuff than you would a KTM or a Yamaha. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video on the 250 two-stroke. I'm not sure if we're going to take it home and ride it. Really would love to tell you guys that we're going to ride the wheels off this thing, but it's so hard to sell them at a decent price, used, you know, new used, whatever. But one thing you can do to help us, and it's my only sales pitch in the whole video, is If you guys are buying your parts on the Beta website, if you could please choose 3C's Recreation as your dealer when you're creating that account, it really helps us at the end of the month. We get a small commission on every order. We no longer do the drop shipping, so I don't have control over it. I'm not helping you guys. I'm not getting the invoices. So I don't really know on the Beta dealer website or on the Beta consumer website. If you guys could please choose 3C's, it helps us, and that would really help us make more of those comparison videos. It would take some of the pressure off me riding the new bike. So enjoy the ride. We'll see you on the trail.